In this video, I will go over my gap and go trades for the week of March 4th through the 8th. I will give you some price targets and point out some gaps to the north side and gaps to the south side. First up is NIO. We ended the week at $5.78. To the north side takes us to resistance and a potential take profit area at $5.99. 611 and another level of resistance, 624. The gap that I am tracking to the north side takes us to 705, closes out at roughly 716 right there. I've been tracking this one for quite some time. Another one takes us up to 784, and then another one at 1030. We have many gaps to fill, but we are not in the channel, not in the zone yet, and this is just something to be aware of to the north side in the big picture. Right now, we are in an uptrend on the 5-minute time frame. This is Monday and the end of the week Friday. So this is the block that I will be tracking. The next one is SOFI. We ended the week at $8.99. To the north side takes us to a gap beginning at 903. 910, 917, another level of resistance, 924. And that gap closes out at 963. Watch out for the next one that closes out at 994 and eventually 1129. And as you know, we were going down, so we created many gaps, which means we will fill to the north side if and when we do. It's a slow process, and right now we are still slowly going down on the 5-minute time frame. The middle of the trend and support takes us to 896. I will anticipate a bounce at this level. Another bounce at 881. Support 875. This gap begins at roughly 870, closes to the south side at 857. So watch out for that landmine. And looking left, we closed out this gap this past week. I did talk about that in my gap recap. And this video obviously is about price targets. My gap and go trade, my gap recap videos are just about the gap, whether we closed them out. Now, to the south side, there is another landmine to watch out for at 812, closes out at 802. The pink line is where I bought in, and where I bought in here and here as well for myself and for my mom. And I think that is the last gap to the south side. So we are in a downward channel. So this gap, if we continue to slowly grind down, this gap could fill out next week. But there will be a battle as we hit to the south side and then run up and then at resistance sell off. So this thing is gonna whip us all around as it always does with SOFI. Just when you think you're going up and things are turning around, no, they slam you right back down. The next one is RIVN. We ended the week at 1135 to the north side, and resistance and the middle of the trend and the baseline where all price has to go through to get to the upside or to the downside is right now at 1144. Another level of a resistance, 1171, 1186, 1199. A gap forms at 1225, closes out all the way at 1533. We are not in the channel, not in the zone, not even close, but something to be aware of. And then after that, another one here at 778. And I think that's it. All these other lines are resistance lines that I have tracked when we were high and then we tanked. And so we are a long ways away from things that I have marked out. And I also try to mark out price targets so that basically I have a goal. I know where I'm going according to the analysts. They're not always right, but I just read the charts and kind of figure it out myself where we could be going. To the south side, I did not see any threats. If you see a threat or a gap to the south side, please let me know. But I did check this previously when I started this gap, when I put it in as part of my gap and go trades. Next one, TSLY. TradingView did me bad. They lost all of my charting that I did previously. That's not the first time this has happened to me. And I'm not going to go back and fill in all the gaps that I have tracked, but I will kind of keep you updated on the most current ones that I'm tracking. Okay, so we're at $19 to the north side and resistance, and there are many levels of support and resistance within -2 and 2. I'm just giving you the broader levels. At 2 standard deviations, that takes us to 1908, 1914, 1920. This gap closes to the north side at 1947. And then we've got a nice gap here as well that I've been tracking. Where are we? Let this thing load. So this gap started on the Friday, January 5th, and it is still open. And that will take us out at $23. Not in the channel, not in the zone. Something to be aware of. And also, because analysts do not give price targets for ETFs, this becomes my price target. All these gaps to the north side and to the south side become my price targets and gives me an idea of where we could be heading. This one is to the south side. I like my landmines to be in red, so that way when I look at it very quickly at a glance, I know what it means. Everything I mark out, I try to keep it consistent. All right, and I got sidetracked. Look at support. So here we're at support, a bounce, support, 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 buy-in opportunities. Resistance, sell off, resistance, sell off, resistance, sell off, and then the middle of the trend, just grinding along where I always anticipate price to go. So to the south side, if I didn't do it, I'm going to do it again very quickly. 1895, 1882, 1876, and 1870. I never anticipate price to go all the way to -4 or 4 if we're in the middle of the trend. All day long, 2 and -2. And then sometimes at 3 and -3. But at 4, not really. That to me typically is an opportunity to get in. These are outliers when you get to those levels. And sometimes, obviously, it will go down even more, but sometimes that's the opportunity to get in. You just have to read the charts and the RSI, the MACD, whatever you like to use. Trend lines. Pfizer is the next one. I am in this one for my mom. I have BMY for myself. All right. We're at the middle of the trend going downward, so I anticipate price to still head down, but look at this. The RSI is turning up, so we could hit up here and be overextended and then turn right back down and slowly make our way back down to 30. And that's where we would see this go down. But all right, so we are at the middle. Resistance, one level of resistance, 2683. 2695, 2707, and this gap takes us to 2777, and then this one will take us out to roughly 35-ish. Okay. And to the south side, where I will anticipate a bounce if we hit this level. This is my one of my previous buy-in levels for my mom, 2636. I will anticipate a bounce off this, a bounce off of here, 2623, and definitely a bounce at 26.12. I tried to buy this again and set a limit and it never filled. So I will be tracking it down here, here, or here, preferably down here to buy more. The next one is, oh, let me check one thing for Pfizer. No, I am not tracking any other gaps to the south side. Exelon, let it load. 35.49 is where we ended. To the north side, this gap fills out at 35.75, and 2 standard deviations is 35.78, obviously very close, 35.96, 36.17, and that one begins at 36.43, and then this one closes out at roughly 37.90, and am I tracking? Nope, that's it. I should go through and erase my support and resistance lines at some point so it doesn't get too confusing. On some of the tickers that I track, it gets very messy because what I will do is I will mark out, for instance, here. Well, I won't make it in pink because that's usually my buy-in lines. For instance, I'll do this, this, and this, and see where we are grinding within this range even. So I give you this range, but there's another range within this. And then obviously you can also put in your VWAP, and that starts to look very ugly. Let me show you VWAP. See that? There's your VWAP, right where this gap, we're at where this gap started. See how then it starts to look messy, but you know what? I know exactly what everything means, and to me, it's not messy. But I'm going to delete this so that it is not in your way. And then it's interesting, when you leave those on there, you can see, if you go back to the chart a month later, you can see where that becomes support and resistance. It's just crazy. All right, now I've gotten myself sidetracked. So I think that was to the north side. Now I'm going to do the middle of the trend, and the blue line is VWAP, all right, if you like to play VWAP. But notice how when you play the standard deviations, you've got more room to breathe. And if you're playing this line, that's a line that so many other people are playing, and institutions apparently, and that's their buy-in area. But for me, my buy-in, because I'm trolling, is down here, starting down here, here, or here. And then obviously sometimes I never get that price. So the VWAP is much tighter, a tighter margin, and you can definitely make more trades off of that. So now I will get rid of it. Where's my VWAP? Get rid of that. Oh, it didn't. Wait a minute. Remove. There you go. All right, the next one. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I'm going to do this one more time because I sidetracked myself. 35.40, 35.02, 34.83, and if I didn't say it already, 34.75. I should stop digressing so I can stay focused here. I'm not charting individual stocks where I have time to go through all of it. 34.64. I'm trying to get through this and not make this a drawn out video because nobody wants to watch a long drawn out boring video. All right, to the north side, 40.90, 41.07, 41.16, 41.24. This gap begins at 41.35 and closes out at roughly 42.40. We are not in that channel, not in the zone. Something to be aware of. This one does pay a dividend yield of 9.4%. It's pretty high. 40.73, 40.65, and 40.56. And I'm not tracking, it looks like anything to the south side, so that's nice. Note the bounce at support, support, sell off at resistance, 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 and the pattern repeats itself. Intel is a new one for this week. I dropped Uber because I put that in for my gap and go trades for last week and it filled, yay. And that means I had to find another one, and I was debating between Intel and Ford, but I have too many car stocks in here. So I'm like, I'm just going to mix it up. So this gap I did not drag out. That closed already to the upside at 42.72, and we're off to the races. And we do have a gap that I see. But first, I will mark this so I know where we are. Use the arrow up and down if you don't know how to change the price. I like my price to be in black and white in my face. And there's a gap. Oh, if you want, you can turn on the magnet so that you can let it give you the precise level. Sometimes it gets wonky. All right, and it looks like this touched, but it did not. But we gapped up, so that means I anticipate price to go down eventually. So here we go with the landmines to watch out for. Let me just mark this out very quickly for you, and then I will give you the targets. Red, why isn't it changing? Oh, that's because it's the label background. You got to hit the right button. And I need to check a comment somebody wrote. Give me a second here. Comments, published. Yeah, someone said I should give some price, you should give some price targets. He looked at my NIO and didn't see price targets. So on that one, I'm not sure. I did a video on where I thought price was going for NIO. So definitely, I just gave the price targets for NIO. So check that out. But the gap and go trades is where I always give price targets. My recaps, I don't. That's just a quick recap, not really quick, but a recap of whether our gaps filled to the upside or the downside, or if we opened up new ones for the week. All right, here we go. Oh, wait. Come on, let me extend this out. All right. We are at the middle of the trend, basically. That actually is at 43.71. But to the north side, resistance, 44.61. Another potential take profit area, 45.06. This gap begins at 45.39, closes out at 45.53. And note this gap is at a previous resistance level as well. But that gap will eventually close out at 49.50. And I don't know why and there's another one at 50.18. And I think that's it, yeah. So we have a lot of upside potential with Intel, but we are not in that channel, not in the zone, not in the range. But fortunately, we are in an upward channel on the 5-minute time frame. Now, to the south side, this gap begins at 43.30, closes out at 43.10, 42.78. This gap begins at -3 standard deviations and a level of support, 42.35. And when I see this, I don't really like to buy in right here. I like to finish that gap out. We are so close, so I will just wait. And of course, it could start running and never close it out. So that's where I would be playing too conservatively, where I don't get my price filled. So that can get frustrating. And the next target I'm looking for is at 41.87. Old support and resistance. Ignore all my horizontal lines, but the pink lines are the buy-ins. The green is either the price target or where I've sold out. Schlumberger here, 49.35, 49.93, 50.28, 50.62, closes out at 53.60. Not in the channel, not in the zone, but fortunately we are going up. Now, this gap begins. This opened up here last week, 48.82. Then we've got, you have to get it off of the day. This is the close on Friday, and it gets wonky with the magnet turned on, so I go slightly over, and then it will take the price. And then right here is 48.54. 48.19 support, 47.83. You know what happens at support, and that I am not tracking any other gap to the south side. Baba. This one has whipped us around. Seems like they all have, actually. All right, we are at 74.62. Here we go. 75.30. This gap forms at roughly 75.71. This one forms at roughly 76.17. This one closes out at roughly 77.67. This one closes out at roughly 78.09. And I think that is it. But unfortunately, we are going down on BABA, and the RSI is turning down as well. They're running in unison, so that means expect some price, more price movements to the south side. And this gap tells me that we are going south as well, or eventually it will fill to the south side. Starting at 74.49. This is an old price target here. 74.01. Oh, wait, or is it? No, that's a separate gap to the downside. That begins at 74.10, closes out at 73.14. 7.15, 73.15, close enough. Then we got this one. We got this one. Oops. Is that 72.23? Sometimes it's a little off. Yeah, that's fine. I never marked it previously. 71.63 there. And wow, that's a lot of downside potential here. Okay, let me go back to the middle of the trend, all right? 73.61 and 71.95, 71.10, and 70.26. If we make it down to here, obviously all of these will close to the south side. Sometimes I just wish the Band-Aid would get ripped off and we just flush, get some long wicks to the south side and be done, because this is torture going down. It's slow. But obviously it will bounce. Even though we're going down, it could still bounce at 2 standard deviations at resistance for a sell-off area. So just because we go down doesn't mean we hit resistance, doesn't mean that we don't get there, because you just play within the window. All right, and then we've got this gap, 67.97, and then closing out at roughly 61.53. Nike. 101.88, middle of the trend and the baseline. 102.66. This is where I definitely expect price to hit at least once tomorrow, Monday. 103.98, 104.65, 105.27-ish, and this gap closes to the north side at 122.40. Support, 101.35, 100.71, 104. Apple. So disappointing that they announced they're pulling the plug on this car. And I thought they spent, a couple $1 billion. No, I read Tim Cook spent $30 billion to develop and research this car, and then he gave it up. Highly disappointed. I think it's time for new leadership. And do you remember where they slowed the phones down and they got sued over that? And I got a check for that. I was in that class action lawsuit that I didn't know I was part of, but I got a check for $97. And they've, done things to their app creators, making it difficult for them, with charging them more than they should have charged. They've been sued by the EU. I mean, there's just so many things wrong, and they don't have to be that way. They're big enough where they can give a little without people having to sue them for something. But anyway, I'm digressing. And I'm disappointed about the car because I wanted that car. Okay, to the north side. But I do love Apple. 180.67, 181.52, 182.36, 178.95, 177.29, 176.42, and 175.54. Oops, see how this thing just got wonky on me because I moved too fast and I got my cursor. I don't know where I put my cursor and it did this. Just hit the Command Z if you're on a Mac. And that's undo. And finally, the last one, Boeing. I'm in this trade for my mom. I do own Apple for myself. I own a lot of Apple and do have some for my mom as well as Nike and Bob, I forgot to mention, and Intel for my mom. All right, we are here for Boeing. This gap started at 202.49, but we have not filled it. I'll talk about that in a sec. The middle of the trend, 202.83, 207.29, Oops, wrong color. I got sticky fingers. I got to stop. 207.89. This one closes out at roughly 209.18. See, it's getting wonky me. I can't do it. It won't put the cursor where I need it. How about here? Yeah, this one will. All right, that one will take us to 210.94. And this one at roughly 217.71. Not in the channel, not in the zone. I will anticipate us to get to this level and maybe begin this gap. To the south side, 198.13. This gap closes out at roughly 196.94. Nope, wrong tab. Then -3 is 195.88. This gap closes out at 193.87. And then this gap, got so many gaps, 191.93. And, oops. See, yeah, it's not letting me because it's wonky again. But that one will eventually take us out to 186.93. And that does it for me. That is a look at your gap and go trades for the week of March 4th through the 8th. If there is a stock or a ticker you would like me to go over, please let me know and have a fantastic trading week.